My half-sister secretly turned my inherited cabin into an illegal Airbnb. When I found out, I pressed charges and never looked back. I never used to think family could be the source of betrayal. I was the quiet one, the stable one, the one who paid his bills, took care of his own, and didn't expect much from anyone. But as it turns out, being the responsible one just made me the perfect target. My name's Leo. I'm a software engineer, mid-30s. I've got a wife, Sarah, who's a brilliant graphic designer, and a 2-year-old daughter, Mia, who already bosses me around like a tiny queen. We live a modest but good life, structured, private, and calm. That calm, it didn't come from my extended family. In fact, they seemed determined to destroy it. See, I have 2 half-sisters, Clara and Beth. Technically, we share the same father, Robert, but that's about all we share. Clara's the older one, in her 40s. She's a self-proclaimed artist, which really means she sells overpriced abstract pieces on Etsy and mooches off her husband, Mark, who swings between construction gigs. Then there's Beth, late 30s and influencer in that painfully cringy way. Every brunch, every skincare routine, every family meltdown is content. Her husband, Dave, claims to be a freelance marketer, but he's mostly just between clients. From the outside, they try to project this glamorous, carefree lifestyle. In reality, they're drowning in debt, juggling overdue bills behind the scenes of filtered Instagram stories. And despite all that mess, they've always acted like I'm the one with the silver spoon, because I have a job with a salary and a spouse who doesn't scream at waiters. Their resentment started years ago when I inherited a lakeside cabin from my great-aunt. It was old, overgrown, needed everything from a new roof to updated plumbing. But I saw the potential, a sanctuary for my family, and a quiet place for my retired parents to visit without stress. I spent tens of thousands on it: new septic system, high-efficiency heat pump, reinforced deck, storm-proof windows. Every nail in that place was paid for by me, and yet my sisters treated it like some sort of shared summer property they were entitled to. "Must be nice," Clara would say. Every time we talked about the cabin, things just fall into your lap. Beth wasn't much better. "We don't all have a wife with a trust fund background," Shed once texted me. Sarah's parents were professors, not millionaires, but apparently that made us pretentious. Still, I tolerated them. For my parents, Eleanor and Robert are both retired teachers, loving, decent people, but painfully conflict-averse. They crave harmony, even when it comes at the cost of fairness or boundaries. They'd never call out Clara and Beth directly, even when they pulled their usual stunts, forgetting Mia's birthday, borrowing money they never paid back, or showing up to the cabin uninvited, drinking our wine and leaving a mess. To them, family unity mattered more than logic. If the girls were being difficult, it was just their way. If they lashed out, it was because they were going through a rough patch. I get it, parenting is hard, but excusing bad behavior only feeds it. Still, I tried. I really did. I let things slide. I swallowed a lot of pride, for the sake of keeping the peace. But peace doesn't last when you're the only one trying. They always saw me as an outsider. Despite being the one actually holding everything together, I wasn't part of their chaotic little triangle, their mutual enabling of debt, drama, and denial. I didn't live paycheck to paycheck. I didn't gossip in the group chat. I didn't overshare online, and for that, I was too good for them. They hated how Sarah and I set boundaries. They hated how we said no without explanation. But most of all, they hated that I had something they didn't: stability. And the cabin, well, that became their battleground, their symbol of injustice. They joke about how we should rent it out to cover all the upgrades, even though they knew I paid for every improvement. They guilt-trip my parents, complaining they never got to use it enough. They even started referring to it as the family cabin. Except it wasn't. It was mine. Legally, financially, emotionally, mine. But entitlement makes people bold, and resentment makes them reckless. What they did next, I wouldn't have believed it myself if I hadn't caught it on camera. It started, as always, with a guilt trip. My mom, Eleanor, texted me one morning in late spring. "We're thinking of a family get-together at the cabin. Just a little weekend thing. Food, games, some fresh air. Mia would love it. Please come." Sarah and I looked at each other across the breakfast table. We both knew what this really was: a peace offering wrapped in emotional blackmail. But for my mom's sake, we agreed. One weekend, just to keep the waters calm. Big mistake. From the moment we arrived at the cabin, something felt off. Clara and Beth had already set up camp. I'm talking full-scale takeover, coolers overflowing with beer, Bluetooth speakers blaring, and half the living room rearranged to fit Beth's filming setup. Apparently, she was live streaming a lake house vlog series without asking me. Mark and Dave were already drunk by noon. Clara chain-smoked on the porch while yelling at someone on the phone about a bounced check. Beth kept trying to get candid shots of Mia, which we shut down immediately. Sarah gave me the look, the one that said we should turn around at the driveway. Their kids, 3 teenagers, Maya, Finn, and Liam, ran around unsupervised like it was Lord of the Flies. At one point, they were throwing rocks into the lake, just barely missing a family of ducks. I asked them to cool it. They rolled their eyes. Later that afternoon, as I was standing near the dock with Mia in my arms, trying to show her the fish swimming near the shore, those same teens came up behind me giggling. "Hey, Uncle Leo," one of them shouted. I turned just in time to see them rushing toward me, arms out, clearly trying to push me into the water as some kind of prank. Instinct kicked in. I pivoted hard, shielding Mia. The momentum sent all three of them tumbling into the lake. It was shallow, but Liam scraped his knee badly on a submerged rock. His phone, a new one, still in a waterproof case but clearly malfunctioning, was dead. That was all it took. Clara and Beth came running like I'd shoved them off a cliff. Screaming, accusing, wailing about how reckless I was, how I endangered their children. Beth was already filming it, probably hoping for a viral moment. Sarah pulled Mia close, shielding her from the chaos. I kept my voice calm. They tried to push me in, with my daughter in my arms. Maybe ask yourselves why they thought that was okay. Clara's voice cracked from the force of her yelling. "You owe us a new phone. That thing cost $1,300. Dave stormed over from the porch, slurring. "You think you're better than us? Think you can just insult our parenting and walk away?" He stumbled on a loose rug, twisted his ankle, and spilled his drink all over the deck. I didn't say a word. I just looked at Sarah. She already had Mia in her carrier, and our bags half-packed. We left without another word. My dad tried to follow us to the car, rambling about how these things get out of hand and let's not make it worse. My mom stood behind him, crying and wringing her hands. We didn't look back. On the drive home, Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "We're not doing this again, ever." I nodded, and meant it. That night, the family group chat exploded. Paragraphs from Clara and Beth, filled with insults, accusations, and links to the phone Liam deserved to have replaced. Dave chimed in with, "You assaulted my son and ruined my ankle. We could sue." I muted the chat. Sarah blocked them all. My phone stayed silent for a few hours. Then came the messages from my mom. "Can we please talk? This isn't what I wanted. Let's have a family meeting." And then the girls are willing to apologize. The apology was a 3-line message sent from Eleanor's phone. "Sorry things got out of hand. Hope Mia's okay. Let's move past it." Then, not even an hour later, Mark texted me directly, "Still expecting you to pay for the phone, and Dave's ankle brace." That was it. Sarah and I sat down, drafted a clear message and sent it to my parents. "We will no longer attend any family gathering where Clara, Beth, Mark, or Dave are present. This is final. We will not be harassed, manipulated, or blamed for the consequences of their own behavior." Then we blocked them all again. That should have been the end of it. But this family doesn't understand the meaning of boundaries, and they had one last card to play. After we left the cabin and blocked the worst of the chaos, I thought maybe, just maybe, that silence would follow. But toxicity doesn't die quietly. Dave's ankle turned out to be a mild sprain, but you wouldn't have guessed that from the melodrama. He started wearing a brace everywhere. Photos of him propped on the couch, foot elevated, drink in hand. Beth posted one with the caption, "Hubby injured thanks to a family incident. Grateful for healing energy and love. #toxic people." No names mentioned, of course, but the message was loud and clear. And Clara, she unleashed a torrent of text messages to our mom. Screenshots of phone repair estimates, pictures of Liam's scraped knee, a voice memo of her literally sobbing, demanding accountability from the golden boy and his ice queen wife. Sarah, predictably, didn't care. "Let them rot," she muttered, deleting another email with the subject line, "Urgent cabin matter." I should have been angry, but mostly I felt tired. The kind of deep exhaustion you only feel when you've been gaslit by your own blood. Then Eleanor called. She wasn't crying this time, but her voice trembled. "I know things are tense," she said, "but we need to come together, as a family, just to talk." I almost laughed. Talk about what? "They're willing to apologize. Properly this time. I think they realize they crossed the line." I asked, "Did they say that to you directly? Or are you hoping they will?" There was silence. That answered my question. Still, we agreed to one final call, with just my parents. No sisters, no in-laws, no audience. That night, we sat across from them at their condo, with Mia asleep in her carrier beside us. Sarah held my hand under the table the entire time. Robert surprised me. For the first time in years, he looked angry, not at us, but at them. "You were right," he said quietly. "It's gotten out of control." He went on to say how exhausted he was, how fed up he was, with always being the peacekeeper. "I try to keep everyone happy," he said, "but all I've done is let Clara and Beth run wild. We let them believe everything was owed to them. I think we broke them by trying to protect them from consequences." Then came the real gut punch. Robert leaned forward, rubbed his face, and sighed. "There's something we didn't know. Not until Clara called your mother last night. She's been renting out the cabin." My mouth went dry. "Excuse me?" Eleanor added, "Airbnb, under a fake name, apparently for nearly 2 years. She said she needed extra income," Robert said. and thought it was harmless. Said she only did it when you weren't using the place. I blinked. You knew about this? She just told us. And Beth? They split the money. Beth helped clean, manage bookings. It was coordinated. Sarah let out a sharp, bitter laugh. You mean they illegally monetized our private property and exposed it to total strangers without telling us? My dad looked genuinely ashamed. Yes. And we are so sorry. That was the moment something snapped inside me. They filmed inside, slept in our beds, took money from strangers who had no idea they were staying in someone's family cabin. And you're telling me this now? Eleanor said, she's desperate, Leo. They're facing eviction. Clara said they were counting on the cabin for summer bookings. They were counting on stealing from us. I stood up. I need to go. I need to breathe. Sarah followed me outside. We paced in silence until I finally said it out loud. They didn't just disrespect boundaries. They exploited our home. They stole from us. That week, Sarah and I installed new cameras, changed every smart lock code, removed the hidden key, and transferred all utility accounts solely into my name. I hired Gus, a local handyman I trusted, to do weekly checks. He was a retired vet who lived nearby and had already helped with repairs before, had text me updates with photos every Friday. That alone brought more peace than anything in months. Then came the final straw. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Sarah had just picked up Mia from daycare when I got a call from the building concierge. Mr. Leo, 2 women are downstairs, Clara and Beth. They say it's urgent. I didn't even go down. I watched them through the security feed from my phone. Beth pacing, phone in hand, filming, Clara yelling at the front desk. They waited 15 minutes before giving up. A new barrage of messages followed. You owe us for what you ruined. You don't get to keep everything to yourself. You took our income. You destroyed our lives. But it was Beth's final message that broke something in me. The least you can do is pay for Liam's summer camp and Ma's dance school. That cabin money was our only way to support them. Support them? They stole from me, lied to my parents, and now they wanted more. That night, I replied with one sentence. You will never step foot on that property again. They responded with threats, insults, promises of legal action, public exposure, and social media truth-telling. I didn't reply. Instead, I packed a bag, drove to the cabin alone, and reinforced every single vulnerable point: new locks, motion sensors, bright floodlights, fresh no trespassing signs. I even changed the Wi-Fi password, removed their old user profiles from the thermostat app, and installed a backup battery system for the security cams. The final step? I hired Gus full-time. He was thrilled, said he'd always loved the place, that someone ought to treat it right. You ever get trouble from them again? He said, tapping the side of the new floodlight. I'll have the sheriff on speed dial. I nodded. For the first time in months, I felt something return. Control, ownership, peace. But Clara and Beth, they weren't finished yet. And their husbands were about to do something that would make everything worse. I thought the new locks, cameras, and reinforced boundaries would be enough. I truly believed they'd back off once it was clear I wasn't playing games. But people like Clara and Beth don't just stop. They don't learn. They escalate. The next blow came through my mom. Clara called Eleanor in the middle of the night, hysterical, sobbing. We're going to lose everything, she cried. The studio's dead, the truck stays from repossession, and Maya's going to lose her dance scholarship if we don't make her summer program payments. And then the real bombshell, she admitted she'd been using the cabin as an under-the-table Airbnb for almost 2 years. No permits, no taxes, all cash. She said she needed the money after Mark's hours were cut, and they were barely making it. She even claimed Beth helped clean and coordinate guests, while Dave handled the marketing. It wasn't just Clara, it was all of them. Eleanor was beside herself. When she told me, her voice cracked like she was grieving a death. We trusted them, she said, and they lied to us for years. I didn't comfort her. I just said, they didn't lie to you. They used you. There's a difference. That same week, Clara and Beth showed up outside our apartment again. This time, while Sarah was picking Mia up from daycare, they were waiting by the entrance, blocking the sidewalk like it was some intervention. Clara had this deranged glint in her eye. Beth was already filming. You can't keep us out, Clara snapped. You don't own family. That cabin is part of our legacy too. Legacy, I said, barely restraining my voice. You exploited it like a business. You let strangers sleep in my daughter's bed. Beth stepped forward. It's not like we trashed it. We kept it clean. People loved the place. Look at the reviews. I cut her off. You committed fraud. You stole from me. You violated every boundary we ever had. And now you're standing here demanding I pay for summer camp and dance classes. Clara shouted. It's the least you can do after destroying our income stream. That's when I snapped. You want to talk about destroying things? I pulled out my phone and opened the security camera footage. I showed them clips, timestamps, date stamps, faces of strangers entering my property. Of Beth unlocking the cabin door with the hidden key. Of Mark unloading crates of toilet paper and towels. You've been recorded dozens of times, I said coldly. I know everything, and now the sheriff does too. The blood drained from Clara's face. Beth muttered something and stormed off. Clara stayed trembling. This isn't over, she hissed. We have rights. No, I said. You had chances. Now you have consequences. The very next weekend, I got an alert. Cabin front door, forced entry detected. Gus called me 5 minutes later, voice steady but tight. I just pulled up. Mark's pickup is here. Back windows shattered. Looks like they broke in. He called the sheriff. When deputies arrived, they found Mark and Dave inside the cabin, one rummaging through the linen closet, the other yanking open kitchen drawers. They had a duffel bag half-packed with towels, sheets, even some of Mia's toys from the spare room. When confronted, they went off. You don't get to lock us out like we're trash, Mark screamed. We've earned this place, Dave shouted. Leo's, the criminal. He's hoarding family property. They were arrested on the spot. Felony breaking and entering, destruction of property, harassment thanks to the explicit threats they made while being cuffed. It took less than 2 hours for Beth and Clara to start calling my parents, crying about misunderstandings and overreactions. But it was too late. The sheriff's department had everything on record. Video, audio, witness statements. Mark and Dave spent the weekend in holding. Bail was steep, especially with the charges stacking up over a holiday weekend. Beth and Clara couldn't cover it. They had to borrow from friends, even begged Eleanor and Robert. My parents, to their credit, said no. Robert finally stepped up, told them exactly what I had months earlier. You broke it, you fix it, Leo owes you nothing. When I reviewed the cabin damage, it was worse than I expected. A shattered window, pry marks on the back door, broken light fixtures. And the worst part? The linen closet had been ransacked, Mia's favorite quilt, gone. Sarah cried when she saw the footage, not just for the violation, but for the sheer audacity. They were going to book another stay, she whispered. They were prepping for more guests. I contacted a lawyer the next morning, pressed full charges, demanded restitution. Beth sent a barrage of texts. This is going to ruin us. You're taking it too far. You're a monster, Leo. I didn't reply. The Deas office offered a deal. If I agreed to a civil settlement and dropped felony charges, they'd downgrade to misdemeanor trespassing. It'd still go on their record, but no jail time. My attorney advised it. Faster, cleaner, less emotional energy. Sarah agreed. Let's end it, but make sure they pay. So we drafted the terms, $5,000 in damages and legal fees, a binding no-contact agreement, a formal, notarized apology letter from all parties, monthly payment plan, enforced by court order. They signed. Mark, to his credit, pushed it through. Dave sulked but complied. Clara was bitter. Beth cried in the lawyer's office, but signed anyway. Afterwards, I visited the cabin one more time. Goss had already fixed the damage, God bless him, but the air felt different, wounded. I stood on the porch, looked out at the lake and whispered, never again. Some scars you don't cover up. You leave them where they are, so you never forget who put them there. Weeks passed, then a month. It was quiet. No texts, no visits, no sudden social media posts or cryptic jabs disguised as motivational quotes. Just silence. I hadn't realized how much noise they created until it was gone. Then one day, a manila envelope showed up at my door. Inside was a typed letter on plain white paper, signed at the bottom by Mark and Dave, along with it, a cashier's check for $3,000. The letter read like it had been written by someone's exhausted public defender. Phrases like regret our actions and recognize the distress caused, and willing to abide by all terms outlined. It ended with a single line that, even though forced, finally acknowledged the truth. We understand we had no right to enter or use the property in question, and will not attempt to do so again. I showed it to Sarah. She read it once and nodded. It's not sincere, but it's legally binding. That's all that matters. The remaining $2,000 came in installments as agreed, court-monitored, enforced. With the charges officially downgraded to misdemeanor trespassing, they escaped jail time, but not without consequences. Mark was slapped with community service and 6 months probation. Dave got the same. The judge, an old nonsense type, looked them both dead in the eye and said, next time you step over a line like this, he'll make sure it's the last time. Outside the courthouse, Beth tried to approach us. I didn't stop walking. Sarah didn't even turn her head. Later, Eleanor called, not to plead, but to thank us. Thank you for protecting the cabin, she said. For protecting yourselves, we should done it a long time ago. And Robert? He sent a message that shocked me. A photo of a handwritten letter he had mailed to Clara and Beth. The first paragraph read, you're not entitled to your brother's life, property, or peace. You're entitled to your own consequences. That's all. That was when I knew something had shifted for good. But the damage wasn't just emotional. It was practical too. Clara and Mark were forced to sell her studio, which was really just a converted garage in the back of their rental. Without the illegal Airbnb money, they couldn't cover their truck payments or their maxed out credit cards. Eventually, they moved into a smaller apartment in a different part of town. Beth's Instagram feed, once full of influencer photo shoots and curated brunches, started to go dark. Sponsors dropped, comments went unanswered. Eventually, her business inquiries email bounced back with a generic auto-reply. Dave's reputation in the freelance marketing world took a hit. Word spreads quickly in those circles, especially when you've got a misdemeanor trespass charge and a history of being difficult to work with. He lost 2 clients within a month. By the end of the quarter, he was asking around for part-time work. And us? We thrived. Sarah and I made a decision: we'd keep the cabin, but only for us, Mia and my parents. No more family events, no open-door policy, no assumptions. We turned it into a true retreat. I added blackout curtains in the bedrooms. Sarah painted Mia's room in soft pastels and hung fairy lights above her reading nook. We planted flowers in the front beds and installed a fire pit in the back. I even built a tiny dock extension, just big enough for Mia to dip her feet in without getting too deep. Every visit felt like a reset. Sometimes, Robert and Eleanor would come for lunch, or spend a night, quiet, respectful, grateful. They never brought up the others again. We didn't need to. Mia called it our magic house by the water. She was right. It was magic, but not because of the location. Because of the peace. No drama, no screaming, no unexpected knocks on the door or lingering resentment buzzing beneath the surface. Just wind in the trees, laughter on the deck, and the hum of a life finally reclaimed. That peace was earned. Every ounce of it. It came at a cost. Emotional distance from family we once hoped would change. The pain of betrayal, the raw anger of watching our boundaries be stomped on over and over. But it was worth it. I used to think protecting family meant forgiving everything, that keeping the peace required sacrifice, that standing your ground was selfish. Now I know better. Protecting your family sometimes means protecting them from your family. It means setting the boundary and keeping it. It means saying, this is my line, cross it, and you're done. And it means being okay with walking away, without looking back. It's been over a year since the break-in. Sometimes I still get those phantom notifications. The ones you imagine are from people you've blocked. A flicker of anxiety, a subconscious twitch, a muscle memory of dysfunction. But then I check, and there's nothing, just peace. Beth, Clara, Mark, and Dave have been completely silent. And we've stayed that way too. Our no-contact agreement is legally enforced, but even if it weren't, we wouldn't budge. No exceptions. Not for birthdays, not for apologies, not for Eleanor's quiet suggestions that someday maybe. No. Some fractures aren't meant to be mended. Some walls are meant to be built and left standing. Sarah and I made a vow to each other and to Mia that our home, our lives, and our future would never again be held hostage by toxic family dynamics. And we've kept it. The cabin, once a symbol of chaos and conflict, has become sacred. We visit once or twice a month, sometimes for a weekend, sometimes for just a quiet Sunday morning with coffee by the lake. The air smells cleaner there now. The silence feels intentional, not tense. Mia's getting older. She loves helping Sarah plant flowers by the porch and insists on roasting exactly 3 marshmallows every night we light the fire pit. She's starting to associate the cabin, not with drama, but with joy, with stability, with safety. And that's everything. Robert and Eleanor still visit, separately, quietly. They call ahead now, every time. They knock, even when we're expecting them. And when they do visit, they bring food, help clean, and never stay longer than they're welcome. It took time, but they've shifted, especially Robert. One day, while helping me repaint the old shed out back, he paused and said, "You were right to shut it down, all of it." He didn't say more. He didn't have to. That one sentence said what I'd waited my whole life to hear: validation. As for Clara and Beth, well, life forced its own kind of accountability. Clara's little art business fizzled. She blamed the economy, but everyone knew it was because she lost her studio, her audience, and her credibility. No one wants to buy pastel rage from someone who ran a fraudulent Airbnb and got caught breaking into her brother's property. Beth's social media persona cracked under the pressure. Her followers noticed a shift: vaguer captions, more reposted memes, less sponsored content. Eventually, her curated boss babe aesthetic gave way to a feed full of nostalgic photos and healing journey quotes. But you can't heal publicly from wounds you refuse to acknowledge privately. Mark bounced between short-term construction jobs. Dave, well, last I heard, he was pitching consulting packages on LinkedIn to brands that never replied. In a way, they all got what they wanted. Freedom, just not the kind they imagined. They're free from expectations, free from boundaries they never respected, and free from a family they tried to exploit for years. And us? We're free too. Not in spite of the fight, but because of it. There's something people don't tell you about cutting off toxic family members. The guilt doesn't come first. The peace does. That's what surprises you. You brace yourself for regret or doubt, but instead there's just this quiet, calming stillness, And then slowly, the guilt tries to sneak in. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you were conditioned to believe that love meant endurance, that forgiveness was infinite, that blood is thicker than boundaries. But here's the truth I had to learn the hard way. Love is not an excuse for abuse. Forgiveness is not a license for repetition. And blood only matters when it behaves like family. What matters more is the life we build in the aftermath, the patterns we break, the peace we protect, and the legacy we leave for those who come next. Mia won't grow up thinking it's normal to be manipulated by relatives. She won't learn that love has to be earned through silence or sacrifice. She'll learn instead that love is respect, that peace is power, that boundaries are not punishments, but protections. She'll learn that saying no is not cruel, it's self-preservation. And when she's old enough to ask what happened, I'll tell her the truth. Not the gossip, not the drama, just the truth. That cabin was a gift. Not just the building, but what it taught us. It showed us how to stand up for ourselves, even when it hurt. It showed us that sometimes peace comes after fire, and we fought for that peace, so you wouldn't have to. Because in the end, the real inheritance isn't property. It's peace. It's knowing when to let go. And it's never looking back.